I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody and welcome. For those of you who are interested, give you an update on the warden. He expects to be back in early April. As soon as he gets the green light from his doctor, who he sees in early April. He's anticipating coming back the day after. So we welcome our new commissioners to the county prison. I'm sure it's not the first time you've been here.
We got a second time. So we have a tour, yeah.
We meet here quarterly as a board, so we look forward to many more meetings. So I take it everybody had an opportunity to review the meetings that were disseminated, and assuming that you have and no issues, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So,
Do I have a second?
second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The meetings from our February meeting are approved. Is there anybody, excuse me, from the public who wishes to address the board on agenda items? Okay. We'll move forward then with the first motion to approve all current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Current payables for the Community Corrections Center and the prison are approved. So we'll move on to our reports. Excuse me. The Controller's report, Mr. DiBileo.
Yes, Judge.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Controller's report of the prison inmate canteen accounts for February 2024. The Controller's office reviewed the prison inmate and canteen account reconciliations which were prepared by the prison business office for the month of January 2024 and found no discrepancies between the reconciliations and the bank statement. The balance in the inmate account was $482,293.90 as of February 29, 2024. The balance in the canteen checking account was $381,735.09 as of February 29th. In addition, as of February 29th, the canteen account also included a balance in the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust investment accounts of $900,559.00, earning approximately $3,767.92 per month, which will mature in July of 2024. During the month of February 2024, $104,279.85 was paid from the canteen account for the benefit, welfare, and education of county inmates, and the itemized detail of those expenditures are attached to my report. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for the Controller? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. DiBileo. Next, Norm, we'll hear from you on the Community Corrections Center report.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
It's the house arrest report for the month of February. Adult house arrest had 158 participants. Juvenile had 26. Programs revenues, house arrest had $53,670.24, and juvenile had $4,180, for a total of $57,850.24. Year-to-date totals for both, excuse me, is $110,567.79. Programs expenses was $106,716.31. Programs completions was 34. There were 4 violations. Still have 3 outstanding warrants for house arrest. The budget report overall, overtime's at 6%, expenses at 20%, and revenues at 16%. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Norm. Any questions for Mr. McConaughey? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
The motion's approved. Your report.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Acting Warden Orzel.
Good afternoon, Board. The average daily population for February was 734 inmates, 551 of which were county inmates. We averaged 644 adult males, 7 juvenile males, and 85 adult females. The average daily population of U.S. Marshals detainees was 183. Our staffing update, we currently have for the month of February, we had 174 full-time correctional officers, 7 on workers' comp, 70 on FMLA, 2 on continuous FMLA, and 68 on intermittent FMLA. And then we have 3 full-time vacancies. The budget as of February 29th, 2024, revenue was out 10% and expenses were at 21%. Extraordinary occurrence report. There were 4 extraordinary occurrences in the month of February. On February 7th, an individual was brought into the prison's booking area who was screaming and combative with the transporting law enforcement agency and booking staff. Numerous attempts were made to de-escalate, but she refused all verbal commands and remained non-compliant. Therefore, it was deemed necessary to utilize the emergency restraint chair to ensure the safety of herself and all staff while she was properly booked and could calm down. On February 17th, an inmate was expressing suicidal ideations and was acting erratically. Multiple attempts were made to verbally de-escalate with crisis intervention techniques, all met with negative results. The emergency restraint chair was utilized to ensure the individual could not self-harm. On February 20th, an individual was brought into the booking area who was refusing all orders to comply with the booking process. Multiple de-escalation attempts were made with no success. The individual became increasingly non-compliant. Therefore, the emergency restraint chair was utilized to ensure compliance and to calm the individual. On February 26th, an inmate was attempting to tie a sweatshirt around her neck like a noose. Staff intervened and removed the item and escorted her out of her cell for evaluation. She became combative with staff and attempted to assault an officer. The emergency restraint chair had to be utilized to ensure she was not a danger to herself or others. There were 4 PREA investigations completed in the month of February that were categorized as the following. We had 1 inmate on inmate sexual harassment that was unfounded, 1 case of inmate on inmate sexual contact which was founded. We had 1 unfounded staff on inmate sexual harassment and 1 unfounded staff on inmate sexual misconduct. All completed investigations have been forwarded to the DA's office for further action if deemed appropriate. For personnel, we currently have 5 full-time correctional officer vacancies, multiple part-time correctional officer vacancies, and 1 part-time receptionist position. There were 2 resignations, 1 part-time corrections officer and 1 part-time receptionist. There was 1 termination for failure to report for duty and refusal to perform work as lawfully ordered. And this concludes my report. But I do want to add that we have 1 personnel matter that I would request to go into executive session to discuss.
I have something for executive session, a legal matter. So we'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions for the warden?
Oh, sorry.
I have one. Deputy Warden, is there anything in the works that might possibly help alleviate the burden of mandatory double shifts by correctional officers?
Yes. Prison administration has been communicating with the county HR department and the labor attorney quite consistently to come up with ideas and alternatives. So as I said in my report, we currently have 5 full-time openings. And when I talk with other facilities in the state, that's really not a bad number. There are facilities that have 70+ vacancies. So what I'm, coming to the conclusion is we don't necessarily have a staffing problem, we have an attendance problem. So we're trying to think of ways to make it, whether it's people don't want to come to work, or we have to figure out why people don't want to come to work. And then we have multiple workers' comp cases where we might utilize that law to our benefit to have people fill in for those individuals on a full-time basis. We are advertising for the corrections officer vacancies, which means we'd love to include the part-time opportunities that we have available per the CBA. So hopefully in April, we will be able to conduct a new cadet class. So we can have 5 to 10 full-time employees in that class and maybe even some part-time individuals. So we're trying to come up with ways to combat like I said, the attendance issue and the mandate issue. And the problem is, we have a lot of staff that are not staying for their mandates. So it's just, we're battling this and we're trying to find every way possible. So like I said, we communicate extensively with the HR department and the labor attorney, and even us amongst our administrative staff, just to kind of talk to people and see what we can possibly do.
Thanks for working on that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add there is to make sure that you continue to communicate with Labor Council and the HR department, because when our own solicitor can tell you too, when you get, you don't want to run afoul of workers' compensation laws or the collective bargaining agreement as well. So.
That was actually a recommendation, a suggestion by the county and the labor attorney. So
okay. Good. Okay. Any other question? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the warden's report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. I get nervous
I'll tell you after the meeting.
with a badge is looking at me, so this guy's over my shoulder all the time. I'm not as worried about him.
But you're fine, Judge.
All right. So, anybody from the public wish to address the board on anything? Joan?
Joan Hodawan at Scranton. With regard to the warden's report, I saw that for February you had 3 full-time vacancies, and then on the second page it's 5. Are those the 2 additional ones from the month of March?
yes.
Okay. And I was also looking at the overtime figures, and I looked at, you only have January and February for this year. And I compared them to January and February for last year, and I noticed that it was something like a 28% increase. Is that a reflection of these personnel issues?
Yes, it is.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll go into executive session now because we have a personnel matter and a legal matter to discuss. So I'll ask everybody to step outside, please.
Just turning it back on now.
Okay.
Good to go?
Okay. All right, so we're back from executive session. As I indicated, we had a personnel matter to discuss and a legal matter to discuss. We have discussed those. So any of the members have other business?
I have one thing, Judge.
Okay.
At our last meeting, we discussed an audit that was done by Kohansky and Company auditing firm of our prison's 2 accounts, the canteen/welfare account, which is money derived through the sale of items in the prison commissary by inmates, such as like snacks, drinks, clothing, etc. And in that canteen account, we have $1,282,294.09 as of February 29th. This money is supposed to be used for the benefit, education, and welfare of inmates. This month we spent $104,000 for that purpose. And like, for example, last month we spent money on exercise equipment. The audit also covered the inmate account, which is inmate money provided to the prison by inmates themselves or by family members. And we have $482,000 of inmate money in the inmate account. Some of this money is not identifiable. Some is identifiable but without any known address. Some of the money must be sheeted to the state so that they can help us get the money back to the inmate. But anyway, today we have Kelly Lindsay here, the accountant from Kohansky and Company, and I asked her to come to address the audit. Also, after Kelly's done, Kathy Regan from the prison business office is here, who manages the account, and my deputy Reggie Mariani, who oversees the amount of funds that we have. So thanks for coming, Kelly. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about the audit, if anybody has any questions.
Okay. Yeah, I understand everybody's had a chance to review it. Does anybody have specific questions on any of what the work that I did, any of the findings that I had?
Well, you made some recommendations, and so are we going to be able to rely on you to implement some of those recommendations?
It really just depends on, what the county wants to do. The offender management system, which is the system that keeps track of the inmate funds, that system, I think, is ultimately designed to be a comprehensive general ledger. So that should track all of the cash activity in and out, the inmate funds. At this point, it really is only keeping track of the inmate money and the canteen fund money. And it seems to be doing a good job. I didn't have any issues with the money that's there. The problem is that there's Excel spreadsheets are being used to actually record cash deposits and checks that are being written. And because there's been, historically, there's been differences between those two systems and they haven't been working together, there's differences that exist between the money that's in the OMS system and the cash in the bank. And I identified that when I was doing my audit. So what I tried to do is I tried to reconcile the two systems just to make sure that the OMS system, the money that was in the OMS system for the inmates, actually there was cash, available for the inmate funds. I was a little bit limited in my reconciliation procedures only because the OMS system is date sensitive. So I didn't have all the reports I needed as of December 31st, 2022, which is the date that I did the examination. So, to move forward, my recommendation is that you use something other than Excel spreadsheets to keep track of the cash in and cash out. And, what the county can do with that, is up to you as the board in terms of what software and how you want to deal with that recommendation. In reconciling the two or trying to reconcile the two, we did identify that there's probably some funds that need to be returned to inmates who are no longer here. So again, that's something that the board and the management of the prison will have to address. So, I'm kind of limited in terms of, what I can do until the board decides.
So along those lines, can you go over that? That's what concerns me the most, is
Okay.
the money that belongs to others that we're holding.
Okay.
So what is the rule to where that has to be turned over to the state of Pennsylvania?
Okay.
What is the policy that we should be following in order to turn that money over if we can't identify and return the money?
Okay. Well, there's actually two issues. There is a pool of money where the specific inmate can be identified. And that money, I'm not entirely sure what the escheat law is, but I think it's like 5 or 6 years you have you can hold on to that money before it has to be turned over to the state. Then there was a pool of money that's been, on the books for, I guess from when they implemented the OMS system, where the inmates that were here, the money that belongs to, cannot be identified. So that money, I guess for you as a board, that would be.
Do you have a recommendation what we do with that money with the unidentified inmates?
I would say that it should go back into the canteen account to be used for the welfare of the inmates.
Okay. And with respect to the inmates we can identify but obviously can't locate, you're saying we have 5 to 6 years before we turn that over to the state?
I believe so. I'm not entirely sure what the SG law is. Is it 7?
Reggie? 3? Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, because if it sits there, I think in excess of 7, that's a different rule. But we as a board would have an obligation to turn it over, and you're saying, Reggie, that's 3 years that we would turn it over.
I think we have another issue. Being that we
Reggie,
haven't-
could you come up to the podium real quick?
Being that we haven't complied with the estate laws since forever, number one, we have to file a voluntary disclosure agreement with the PA Treasury. The agreement would have to be signed by the warden, and we'd have to attest that we're not currently being audited by PA Treasury. And we'd have to say that we haven't applied for this disclosure agreement within the last 10 years. And after we do, if we do get an approval for the agreement, it has to be strictly confidential, and we'd have to file it, all the paperwork, within 90 days. And we must have all the identifiable information, name, address, social security number, last known address. And from that point on, the prison has to be fully compliant. Otherwise, they could go back and charge us penalties and interest. Now, the other problem is, when we ran the report, there's 5,900 inactive inmates. And we'd have to sort the report by date. We'd have to go back and pick out what inmates that were discharged prior to 12/31/2020. At that point, we'd have to make a spreadsheet with name, address, social security number, load that spreadsheet into a file that the PA Treasury has. It's a HRS Pro file, it's in Excel, and then we'd have to send a check. You'd have to do that within the 90-day window, once we get approval, if we get approval. If we get approval,
Approval for what? For escheating this money?
escheating the money without paying penalty and interest. Otherwise, we will pay penalty and interest on it. So we have a lot of work to do. If OMS can give us the printout, that's fine, but we tried running different printouts and we can't find it. We can't find it unless someone can talk to OMS, somebody who has experience with OMS, and they can possibly run the report. Now, going forward, since we have to be in compliant, every April 15th, you have to go for that next year that you have. So other counties in their OMS system, they have a code where if they want to escheat a particular inmate, they put escheat to state. At the time they put escheat to state, someone manually creates an Excel spreadsheet, accumulates it for the year, and all the ones that are escheat to state. And at the end of the year, prior to April 15th, they have to file that report and send a check. That would take care of the future. But for now, we got a lot of work to do. We got 5,900 inmates that are inactive. Somebody's got to work on that file.
And inactive means they're not here.
Right.
Okay.
They could be deported.
They could be
They
anywhere.
could be deceased.
This goes back into the 90s.
They could be homeless. Yeah.
And just to add, I don't know how possible it would be to extract information from the prior OMS, because you're talking about 2022.
Right.
Prior to 2022, we upgraded the system, so we don't really have access to the old system.
No.
And the county is trying to be diligent in getting this money back to the inmates, as best we can. Kathy Regan can attest to that, Kathy.
Yeah, we try. We send, it gets returned, we put it back on their account. We look for, if they're incarcerated in another facility, we will send it out, whether state, county, we look, finally, we try to use what we have to get the money to them.
Thank you. So, yeah, we gotta have our work cut out for us.
Yeah, so, and the accounting office, being that we audit the prison office, the wall that Dave was talking about before, the accounting wall, we shouldn't have to do it, but, I don't know if Gary wants to, I'm sure we can help try to figure out how to do it, but, we shouldn't be the ones doing it. It should be the business office. No offense, Kathy.
And I can communicate I can reach out to the people from OMS and see if we can extract information
Right.
by way of a different report or.
Right. Now, the report we got was an alpha sequence. If we got a report in discharge sequence, so
Okay.
we can strip it and,
Okay.
and audit that report, and we'd have the people. Now, if they can give us identifiable information to go with those people, perfect. Then we'll upload that into that HRS Pro system that the PA Treasury had, cut a check, and we're done. That's for the $133,000.
Let's make sure we implement the procedures now going forward that we can
Right.
take care of, and then we'll work on fixing the past stuff. So we know April 15th, is that gonna trigger us in 3 weeks?
Yeah, so we don't have much time. We have to get this letter out before April 15th, or we're another year in the reverse, if you want.
And Kelly, so just to confirm, no money was missing, the investments are appropriate, other than
That's
this
correct.
issue of trying to
Yes.
get inmates the money that's owed them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, can I comment on the Excel spreadsheet? When we first started going over in the prison in 2008, they were using, your normal checkbook that you balance your checkbook on. So we created a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet isn't just a spreadsheet of logging or what everything is, but we put a code on it, so at the end of the month, you can figure out what checks are outstanding, and that makes it a lot easier to work it up. No one has ever asked for additional detail, but if they do, you can't really get much detail off the Excel spreadsheet. To get a QuickBook program, all the programs currently are cloud-based. And in order to get a cloud-based program, I think for the prison, Homeland Security would have to pass that program because of all the prison requirements. And I don't know if QuickBooks has that credentials or those credentials. We might have to look for an in-cam program. But even at that, the last time we looked into getting a program, IT said they will not support it. And they refused to support it because we tried getting programs several times. So if IT's not going to support it, poor Kathy's left. He's figuring out how to do it all the time. So that's the issue with obtaining a software program.
Kelly, along those lines, Excel is still a pretty acceptable program for accounting purposes. In my limited knowledge, a lot of businesses use Excel and rely on Excel. Is it that antiquated that it can't work
Well,
for Excel?
it's not designed to be like a double entry accounting system. Like, you can use it for a checkbook. The problem is with Excel is that, it can be altered. There's no real controls. it's can be manipulated. It's really not, like if you were using QuickBooks, there'd be an audit trail if someone, deleted transactions, made changes, things like that. So it's really not secure. So, as an auditor, my preference would be that you're using a double entry accounting system that has some security controls over it. I mean, what they're doing seems to be working. I used all of the board reports that are provided to you to sort of accumulate my numbers that are based on those Excel spreadsheets, and I didn't find any, there were no errors or anything like that, nothing that I found. It's just, from an internal control perspective, Excel is not the best system to be using. Like I mentioned, the OMS system is designed to do that, to perform that function. It's just, it would be, someone would have to come in and completely revamp it and get it reconciled, and you'd pretty much have to start over. So I don't even know if that's feasible. That's why I suggested, a simpler program like QuickBooks, but there may be some limitations there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here,
Thank you.
Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kathy, thanks for being here. And I told all you guys Reggie's good, right? And he is. Thanks for what you're doing.
Anybody else have any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.